Chainsawman 117 is a strong start to the new year with the typical Fujimoto anime cliffhanger, with all of us wondering, does Denji still have plot armor to get through part 2 alive? And what does Yoshida and the biggest simp for Chainsawman know about Asa and Yoru? But getting into the chapter review, we start with Denji covering his ears and contemplating why he's mindlessly obedient to Asa and weighing the options that he actually has. And just when I think he's actually going to change his mind and just stop acting like a simp, as he's thinking so hard, he doesn't notice that he got transported out of the aquarium. And in typical Denji fashion, instead of really questioning all this, he just focuses on the penguin, which I honestly found to be funny and a really wholesome moment. We shift back over to Asa, whose plan actually did work, in the new iteration of the Eternity Devil, who's just in complete disbelief, finding out that you can't buy an aquarium with 1,000,000 yen, which, I mean, dude, you did take the money. You did obviously take the offer, because, I mean, she did buy the aquarium. And he's just cursing Asa, the famine devil, and is overall probably just contemplating his life decisions. Now, on a side note, I'm really messing with the Eternity Devil's design. It definitely reminds me a bit of Shigaraki from My Hero Academia, especially with all the hands, if you're up to date with the manga. Now, everyone else is just in disbelief of just how they got out, and this when Asa is about to get smashed by the Eternity Devil, Yoshida being a total Chad and using the Octopus Devil to slice the Eternity Devil's hand off, with him making a comment about how the Eternity Devil taught him to appreciate life more. Now, what I find interesting about this is the fact that he seemed to know that Asa, or rather Yoru, would be the one to defeat the Eternity Devil. And he never really stepped in to get Asa out of harm's way or even handle it himself, something that I think he's really entirely capable of doing. Because let's be honest here, this iteration of the Eternity Devil is a lot weaker than the first Eternity Devil that we saw. That is because we did have some of the flesh from the actual Gun Devil. It really shows she's aware in some way of who Asa really actually is and really how her powers work. Because we look back at part 1 of Chainsaw Man, during the International Assassins arc, Yoshida seemingly knew how Makima's powers worked and who she really was, despite it being classified information, to the point where even Kishibe was just trying to figure out how a high school kid would even know all of this information. And now with Yoshida dropping the Death Devil, which is another horseman, knowing Chainsaw Man's real ability of erasing concepts from the world, which only Kishibe himself should really realistically know, and staring down the Famine Devil in this chapter, full on knowing he was responsible for everything that pretty much occurred in this arc. It lets us know whatever organization Yoshida is a part of, they're seemingly very aware of the 4 horsemen and maybe even an upcoming disaster that could face Japan that could possibly be even worse than the situation with Makima. Now, side note here is, as I was writing the script for this video, another creepy thing that I thought about is Yoshida has been doing a lot of stalking of Asa and Denji because part of his contract with the Octopus Devil allows him to get an insight of a person's whereabouts, or at least the information of an area. So it's entirely possible, going all the way back to the Justice Devil arc when Yuka was going on a rampage in the school, instead of jumping in to save the day like Genji, he just observed the situation and likely learned of Asa's powers there, along with the Famine Devil being at their high school. And even going further back with Yoshida, it's totally possible, in my opinion, he even observes Asa's death and Yoru seemingly taking over Asa's body and going on a killing spree immediately after. And that's what likely led to Yoshida transferring to schools to keep an eye on Denji, not necessarily to keep him safe, but to use them as bait to lure out the remaining horsemen and defeat them to achieve whatever his organization's goals are. So it'll be really interesting seeing what role Yoshida plays in the story. But right now, it really does seem like he's playing the long game, similar to how Kishibe was with Makima. Moving on from that, we have Yoru taking over Asa's body, and interestingly enough, it does seem like the formation of weapons are based on perception, similar to how Makima's power of control worked. So as long as Asa feels guilt for an action, in this case destroying an aquarium, which absolutely amuses Yoru, sorry about that, a strong weapon could actually be formed from it. And pretty much to end the fight, Yoru pretty much throws his spear at the Eternity Devil and it instantly gets one-shot. And as this is going on, Opening 2.0, One-Eye Jotaro and the president of the Devil Hunter Club are in absolutely disbelief. The class president is like, could this power, could it be? Now, I might be digging a little bit too much into this, but the class president might know more than it seems. Like, sure, the guy is a total simp for Chainsawman and a loser. I mean, the guy was crying like a baby for Chainsawman 2 chapters ago, but I honestly do feel like that's meant to be a misdirect because it's obvious to me the Famine Devil may have told him information about the War Devil, or at least its existence. After all, she is actually a part of the Devil Hunters Club, and she said whispers something into his ear. So after all this is concluded, Denji of course had to return the penguin. Goodbye Penchita, you will be missed, and walked Asa back home. And while they're going back to her place, Asa comments that it had to be the worst date ever. Which Denji agrees, but then he brings up the deal that they made last chapter that Asa would grant any wish that Denji desired. And Denji, with the rizz, asked her to go out with another date with him. And this really made me smile and feel happy because it really shows Denji's growth as a character, but also really where he is mentally. He isn't the horn dog that we saw in part 1, or at least the beginning of part 1. Just looking for someone that he can relate to and possibly love him for really just who he is as a person. Not just as Chainsawman, but as Denji. Just something I bet he's probably been struggling a lot with ever since he lost Aki and power. Since, if we're getting kinda honest here, no one has ever really cared for Denji. I mean, even Yoshida, who claims he's looking out for Denji so he can live a good life and tries to act as a friend to him, obviously has ulterior motives that even Denji is fully aware of to some extent. And also in a lot of ways is looking for the same thing. I mean, Asa has Yoru, sure, and at the very least, Asa is trying to view Yoru as more of a friend. But let's face it, Yoru just is using Asa as a means to an end as a guilt battery to make super weapons. I mean, it's kind of like how All For One is using Shigaraki and My Hero Academia as literally a hate battery to steal One For All. And this is pretty much proven to be true because as Asa accepts the date, Yoru in the funniest line is like, so this is what love feels like. Now, in my opinion, this line could really be taken a lot of ways. It could just be Asa feeling genuine love for Denji, like she's actually slowly falling in love with him, or it could just be a lot similar to, or it could really be a lot similar to how it was when Denji was hugged by Makima. Because you have to remember, this has probably been the first time a boy has ever showed any interest towards Asa, like in any way. And in a lot of ways, it's probably the first time she experienced love in a long time from just another person. I mean, let's kind of be honest here. The last person that really did truly love and care about her was her mom. And unfortunately, I mean, she pretty much died to the Typhoon Devil. So it could be more and more of Asa latching on to really the first person that shows her affection, which I guess depending on the way you look at it, could be seen as genuine, or really it could just be seen as superficial because she isn't really in love with Denji necessarily. She's in love with the idea of Denji, at least the idea or really the person that she's seen so far of him. And in typical fashion, Yoru proceeds to take over Asa's body and turn Denji into a weapon. Because let's face it, it wouldn't be a date with Denji if the woman he was trying to take out on a date didn't try to kill him. Now, before we get into if Denji will actually live or not, one thing I don't see a lot of people talk about is if Yoru is now aware that Denji is Chainsaw Man. Because the whole interaction between Yoru and Fami is completely glossed over in this chapter, so we really don't know what they spoke about, if they had a conversation at all, or also was stuck in the aquarium without Yoru. Now, if they did talk, it's obvious that Yoru is keeping a lot of secrets away from Asa. I mean, let's be honest here. The entire story with why Yoru actually even attacked the Chainsaw Devil in the first place, and the fact of the matter that she lied about not knowing who the Famine Devil was, even though they fought together against Chainsaw Man, it really does make Yoru seem a lot more sus, and I gotta be honest, I'm really starting to kind of dislike her character for it, because just when we all kind of thought, like, yeah, maybe her and Asa might have like a genuine relationship and they're starting to bond a little bit more, it really is just seeming like a symbiotic relationship where just pretty much is essentially using her for an end. So I really am kind of starting to dislike Yoru for it. So now getting into the main question of if Denji will live or die, in my opinion, it could really go both ways because Denji is no longer the main character in his own manga. And as we know, if you're a supporting character in a manga written by Fujimoto, you're not safe. I mean, only 3 of the supporting characters in part 1 even made it out alive. I mean, legit, everyone else died in some of the worst ways possible. And we know it is possible for Denji to get turned into a weapon. I mean, why else would the famine devil have trapped Asa into the aquarium if it wasn't possible? Now, it could be possible that certain conditions actually had to be met before this can actually occur. Now, one thing I'll say that kind of goes against this, because Denji is a hybrid and he may actually be immune to the effects of it, at least to a certain extent. Because when we look back at the International Assassins arc, when Denji was fighting against Santa Claus, after she received a boost from the Darkness Devil's flesh, her abilities to transform being into dolls got a boost to the point that even fiends who were touched by her or her dolls would transform into them. And she even theorized that over time, as she got even stronger, hybrids and even devils could be turned into dolls. As it's pretty much been established, the more guilty that Asa feels, the stronger the weapon will actually be when it's created. But it could also be that the more guilt that Asa actually feels, the more potent the ability actually is. So that could actually be how she would be able to make Denji into a weapon. If she feels enough guilt towards it, then it won't matter if Denji is a hybrid or not, it'll just work on him. But let me know what you guys think will happen in chapter 118 of Chainsaw Man.